I can't wait to show everyone my new dress. Kenia spun around, her skirt flaring out like a flower. The first guests began trickling in around 2 o'clock. Families from Kenia's preschool, neighbors, my coworkers from the insurance office. I flitted between groups, making sure everyone had drinks, that the kids were entertained, that the adults were mingling properly. This was my element, being the hostess, the center of attention in the most socially acceptable way. My sister Sam arrived fashionably late, as always, carrying an enormous wrapped box that made Kenia's eyes widen with delight. "Sorry, sorry," Sam called out, her blonde hair perfectly styled despite the humid afternoon. Traffic was insane. At 29, Sam had mastered the art of looking effortlessly put together while somehow always being slightly chaotic. "You made it, that's what matters," I said, giving her a quick hug. Kenia's been asking about Aunt Sam all morning. Nate's mother, Linda, had arrived earlier with his father, and I could see her surveying the party with that critical eye she reserved for anything I organized. At 60, Linda Harper had never quite warmed to me, always seeming to find subtle flaws in my housekeeping, my parenting, my career choices. She stood near the patio table, her silver hair perfectly coiffed, making polite conversation with my father, Paul, while clearly keeping one eye on everything else. The party was in full swing when I heard a familiar voice call out, "Where's the birthday girl?" I turned to see Owen Sutter walking through our back gate, carrying a wrapped present and wearing that easy smile that had charmed me all those years ago. My heart did a little skip, part nervousness, part something I didn't want to examine too closely. Kenia had crashed on the couch, exhausted from all the excitement, and Nate and I moved around each other in the kitchen, cleaning up in tense silence. I kept replaying the afternoon, remembering how alive I'd felt when Owen looked at me, how seen and appreciated. It had been so long since I'd felt that spark, that sense of being desired rather than simply tolerated. "We need to talk," Nate said finally, his voice cutting through my reverie. "About what?" I asked, though I knew exactly what. "About Owen. About why you thought it was appropriate to invite him without discussing it with me first. About why you seem more interested in impressing your ex-boyfriend than spending time with your husband at your daughter's birthday party." I felt my defenses rise immediately. "That's not fair, and you know it. I spent the entire day making sure everyone had a good time, including you. If you chose to sulk in the corner instead of enjoying yourself, that's not my fault." I wasn't sulking. I was watching my wife flirt with another man in front of our friends and family. "Flirt?" I laughed, but it sounded forced even to my own ears. I was being polite to a guest. I was being a good hostess. I'm sorry if my social skills make you uncomfortable. Nate stared at me for a long moment, and I could see something shifting in his expression. The hurt was still there, but it was hardening into something else, something more determined. "You know what, Irene? Maybe you're right. Maybe I am being paranoid. Maybe I should just trust my wife when she tells me there's nothing to worry about." His tone was strange, too calm, and it made me nervous. "Exactly," I said, though his agreement didn't feel like the victory I'd expected. "There's nothing to worry about. Some people just can't handle other people having friendships." Owen's response came quickly. "His loss. You're too special to be made to feel bad about being kind and inclusive." The words sent a warm glow through my chest. When was the last time Nate had called me special? When was the last time he'd made me feel like I was anything more than a wife and mother going through the motions? "You always know the right thing to say," I texted back. "Just being honest. Listen, I know things are probably tense at home right now, but if you ever need someone to talk to, I'm here. No judgment, just a friend who cares about you." I saved his number under a different name, Owen Jim, and deleted our text thread. It was probably unnecessary, but I didn't want to give Nate any more ammunition for his paranoid theories. There was nothing wrong with having a supportive friend, someone who appreciated me for who I was rather than constantly finding fault. The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur of productivity mixed with daydreaming. I found myself thinking about college, about the person I used to be when Owen and I were together. I'd been more adventurous then, more spontaneous. I'd worn brighter colors, laughed louder, taken risks. When had I become this careful, controlled version of myself, constantly walking on eggshells to avoid Nate's disapproval? At 5:30, I packed up my things and headed home, dreading the evening ahead. Nate would be polite but cold, Kenya would sense the tension and act out, and I'd spend another night feeling like a stranger in my own house. But when I walked through the front door, I was surprised to find Nate in the kitchen, actually cooking dinner. Kenya was at the counter beside him, standing on a step stool and helping stir something in a large pot. "Mommy," she called out when she saw me, "Daddy's making spaghetti. I'm helping." "I can see that," I said, setting down my purse and trying to read Nate's expression. "This is a nice surprise." "I thought we could all use a nice family dinner," he said without looking at me. "How was your day?" "Fine, busy." I moved closer to see what they were making. "Smells good." "It's Daddy's special sauce," Kenya announced proudly. "He said I'm the best helper ever." "You absolutely are," I agreed, kissing the top of her head. The domestic scene should have made me happy, but instead it felt forced, like Nate was trying to prove some point about being the better parent. Dinner was pleasant enough, with Kenya chattering about her day at preschool and showing off the new words she was learning to spell. Nate and I made polite conversation about work and schedules, carefully avoiding any mention of the weekend's drama. It felt like we were performing for our daughter, playing the roles of happy parents while dancing around the growing chasm between us. After Kenya was in bed, I settled on the couch with my laptop, ostensibly to catch up on some work emails, but really to avoid being alone with Nate. He was in his home office, as usual, probably working on one of his IT consulting projects or playing some computer game. The house felt quiet and lonely, despite both of us being there. My phone buzzed with another text from Owen. "Hope your evening is going better than expected. Remember, you deserve to be happy." I smiled despite myself, then quickly deleted the message. Owen's gym is sponsoring a fundraiser for the Children's Hospital, and I'm helping coordinating it through work. "The lie came so charitable of you both," Linda said, her tone making it clear she didn't believe a word of it. "Though I do hope you're being careful about appearances, dear. People do talk, especially about married women who spend time alone with their former boyfriends." The accusation hung in the air like poison gas. I felt my cheeks burn with a mixture of embarrassment and rage. How dare she? How dare she sit at my table, eat my food, and then attack my character in front of my family? "I think you're overstepping, Linda," I said, my voice sharper than I'd intended. "My friendships are my business, and I don't appreciate the implication that I'm doing anything inappropriate." "I'm not implying anything," Linda replied smoothly. "I'm simply observing that a married woman should be more mindful of how her actions might be perceived, especially when those actions involve secretive meetings with former lovers." "That's enough," my father interjected, his voice stern. "Linda, I think you're out of line here." "Am I? Because from where I sit, it looks like my son's wife is playing with fire, and everyone's too polite to say anything about it." Sam jumped to my defense, her voice rising with indignation. "Irene is allowed to have friends, Linda. She's allowed to have a life outside of your son's narrow expectations." "A life that includes lying about where she's been?" Nate's voice cut through the argument like a blade. He was staring at me with an expression I'd never seen before. Cold, calculating, almost clinical. "Because that's what this is about, isn't it, Irene? And I want you to tell me whether our marriage means anything to you anymore." The questions hung between us like a chasm, and I realized that whatever I said next would determine the course of the rest of our lives. "Let's go upstairs," Nate said, eerily calm. "I don't want Kenia to hear this." In our bedroom, he paced like a prosecutor. "I know you went to Owen's gym Wednesday. I know you've been lying. We're just friends. You're seeking emotional intimacy with another man while lying to your husband. That's an affair." Then he dropped the bomb. "I want a DNA test for Kenia." My world tilted. Are you insane? The timeline never made sense. She doesn't look like me. Her blood type is impossible if she's mine. He held up papers. "Appointments Monday. This is happening. Please don't destroy our family." Kenia needs the truth. He left me alone, drowning in the realization that my lies were finally catching up to me. Monday morning arrived heavy with dread. The testing facility was sterile, clinical. Kenia giggled as the technician swabbed her cheek, oblivious. Results Wednesday afternoon, we were told. 2 days of forced normalcy passed like torture. Wednesday, the technician delivered the verdict. Probability of paternity is 0%. Nate made a sound between a sigh and sob. At home, he opened his briefcase. Photos, phone records, witness statements. I've been building a case. Here are divorce papers. I'm filing for full custody. You can't take her. I've already told Owen he has a daughter. He left, canceled my cards, froze accounts. I'd traded everything for feeling desired. Now I had nothing.